Welcome to week 7 of the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal, and we're glad you're joining us once again. We have a lot of topics to hit on. We're going to talk Woj, Schefter passing, Sinclair, Sunday Night Baseball with A-Rod and Ravitch, Fox's strategy, ESPN Classic, and the Pac-12 and ESPN's problems with their production there. John, how are you?
First topic has to be the pod is making national news, Andrew. I was on the 106.7, the Sports Junkies yesterday morning. Very nice interview, talked about the pod. You had a little bit more of a contentious interview today.
Yeah, I was on. We're taping a little late here on a Wednesday morning because I was on with Boomer and Gio on WFAN, 22 minutes.
I mean, Boomer's a Terp. He should love this pod.
He should. And it was pretty good. It was pretty cordial. Their ratings, I don't know if they spiked that for those 22 minutes. When we talked about New York Post Sports Plus and the advantages of that, and then I tried to answer their questions, and then we also talked about the pod. So it was fun, good spot. But yeah, this podcast is getting some attention, and we're multimedia.
So I'm sure they loved the pod in the end. That was what you got out of that, right?
Yeah. Gio said he hasn't listened, but but hopefully he does. Boomer did not chime in. But we're glad you're listening to it. So let's get to it.
Who's up? Who's down?
On the way up, John, who do you got?
Am I on the way up? It's the Premier League. We're taping this on Wednesday. It's a day before bids are due on the Premier League, so we don't know who's going to get it. But this is what we do know. The Premier League is going to make a lot of money. There's a lot of interest in this package, and the talk is that they're probably going to double their money. They're sitting pretty. They're going to make a lot of money.
All right, and next week we're going to go full details into the Premier League. We're scheduled to have Roger Bennett from Men in Blazers to help us break down that. We both have a lot of insight, but again, when you're listening to it, you're soon going to know, you might already know who got that. So we're not going to go fully into it, but next week we'll go, as you go into your Thanksgiving in depth, we'll go fully into it. Okay. For my on the way up, Phil Mickelson. Mickelson was on the Manning cast the other day, and he was tremendous. He's a guy CBS has been interested in for their golf coverage. The problem with Mickelson right now is he's too good at playing golf still. He's still winning majors, winning tournaments, but you can see why he'll be sought after. And again, I'm not all people act like the Manning cast is new. It's not really, obviously they're new, but people have been doing this type of thing for a while. Could you see Mickelson do an alternative broadcast at some point? Maybe. Or could he be on with Jim Nantz and be on that main group at some point? I could see that as well, but he showed a lot of potential. He had a really good spot for ESPN and the Manning cast.
Yeah, Mickelson to me is just like Manning. Manning is a true TV star. He allows his personality to come out. And every time I see Mickelson when he's not on the golf course or when he's on the golf course doing the match on Turner, like he allows his personality to come out, and viewers really respond to that. On the way down, Chris Ripley of Sinclair. He is, Andrew, our pod's first multi-winner of On the Way Down honors. Sinclair this week did a deal with Dish Network that did not include the Bally Sports RSNs. The deal did include all of Sinclair's local TV channels and the tennis channel. The reason that it's On the Way Down is the guidance that Ripley and Sinclair gave the financial markets was to expect a deal. So all the financial markets were expecting a deal. And when the deal came and it didn't include the RSNs, Sinclair has been punished by particularly the debt markets more than anything else all week.
And we'll get in the future of Sinclair and regional sports network. That's topic 2. So we'll get that in a little bit.
How about you?
For my on the way down, I have Tony Romo on Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. They talked about his interview with Pat McAfee, and this is part of what Romo said.
Yeah, and I was glad that he came out and said how he had misled people. And I think the biggest thing, it's a polarizing issue, but I can promise you he felt the weight of it the last few weeks. It's been something that he's not thinking about anything else, and it's been a very challenging, make no mistake, week for him. And coming into this game, I think he's ready to play football, and this organization wants to as well, and try and put that behind him and move on.
My issue with that is that he didn't say much, and he kind of came out in support of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Andrew, to say he didn't say much is to suggest that he said anything there. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it felt like they were checking a box there. And I know, like, I hit CBS because they took forever during the Super Bowl with the Chiefs to get to the Andy Reid's son story. And so that, they took too long in the Super Bowl. That was weird to me, why that didn't happen earlier in the Super Bowl coverage. And this one kind of felt forced in there. Should they talk about it? Yeah, maybe, but you got to have something to say. You can bring it up. They just felt like even when Nance brought it up, Nance didn't seem that into it when he even brought up the topic. So that's where I think you have to say maybe either don't do it, or if you're going to do it, say something of significance.
Yeah, it was plainly obvious to me they didn't want to talk about it. I thought CBS handled it very well in the pregame show. I don't understand if they don't want to talk about it. Tony Romo was there to talk about the football game. They didn't go to Tracy Wolfson to get her opinion on it. If they don't want to talk, unless they had a strong opinion about it, I say don't go to it.
You're in New York City. I can hear an ambulance in the background. I'm not sure if that's coming through the pod. I actually think CBS might be coming to get you.
I'm not in DC anymore. I mean, what the heck? This is like the urban jungle here. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that on YouTube. If you're listening on the pod through Apple, and then we also are on Spotify, wherever you get your pods, and also you can see our faces on YouTube. All right, let's go to topic one. And I wrote about Jeff Passan, Woj, and Schefter this week.
Jeff Passan, he re-signed with ESPN. He is the MLB insider. You wrote about Woj and Adam Schefter. Their contracts with ESPN are coming up. And everybody's been looking at all these gambling companies angling. They need information. They want the information, guys. And there is expected to be a big bidding war for Woj and Schefter. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, well, first off, let's talk about Passan. He could have gone to one of the betting sites. ESPN treated him well. He deserves it. Hard worker, breaks a lot of stories, good writer, is good on TV, has some charisma. He went from 3 years and about 1.4 million to 4 years in the $4 million neighborhood in total. So $1 million a year for Passan. It's a very significant raise. He's only 41. He's the future of their baseball coverage, and he's excellent. But he could have gone. The betting sites probably could have gotten more money. Now you look at Woj and Schefter. Now I've written about this a lot, how gambling companies are becoming media companies. Now, one thing that kind of, let me evolve where I've been on this. Yes, they're hiring media people. Are they becoming media companies? And that's where, like, will a DraftKings or somebody try to create a mini newsroom, which maybe I would do. I'm not sure, but I would maybe do that, because I don't know if these insiders just go just to tweet and break news for FanDuel. Maybe because the money could be significant. Those guys are already making the multi-millions. But that is an interesting summer of 2022, Schefter and Woj, do they make it to free agency? That would be earth-shattering if they moved.
It really would be. I don't see the gambling companies becoming media companies. I think that they want, like, FanDuel or DraftKings, if they could get Adam Schefter within their walled garden breaking news, how great is that going to be for them to get bettors to know who's not going to play or who's injured or what trade is happening? To me, the second that a gambling company gets actual rights that they can stream from a league, that's when they start to take that step into being a media company. But is it going to be a newsroom type situation over there? No, it's going to be sort of one-off information people like Schefter or like Woj. But the thing that I'm really interested in is, let's use Woj as an example. I would suggest to you that this is a guy who breaks news on the NBA 12 months a year. I would suggest that Adam Silver and the NBA want to have him with one of their established partners in order to market the games, in order to get people watching the games more, because that's what's especially important to them. And so I wonder, and I'm going to be looking at how much influence Adam Silver or Roger Goodell are having on ESPN in order to keep these people, like, within ESPN and not at the gambling sites.
Yeah, a lot of people look at the bombs, especially the Woj bombs and Schefter's big stories as kind of like what their worth is. But there's also context that they provide, and that's what kind of puts oxygen into these stories and into their programming, which is important. I do think, though, you look at their social scale. 10 million between Instagram and Twitter for Schefter, 7 million for Woj. How do you monetize that? Can they get ownership of that? Is that a way for ESPN to maybe spend less on salary, let them have ownership of it? But big thing, last thing for me is ESPN's probably going to do a deal in the billions with a gambling company. You're going to have that influx of money, maybe some of that, and their Twitter feeds go, and some kind of partnership with their Twitter feeds goes to Woj and Schefter types as they go forward, ESPN.
It's one of the biggest stories on our beat, but let's get to topic 2.
Sinclair, the repeat winner of your On the Way Down. I think you called it an honor, which I don't know.
It is an honor. They're good enough to be on the way down, right?
You're big enough so you get it. Yeah, you're right. All right. That's a good way to look at it. All right. When you get complaints, say, you know what? This is a compliment. You're on the way down. You're big. That means you're important. We're talking about you.
Would you rather us not talk about you? Come on.
I think so. All right. So let's talk about them. Sinclair. Excellent. Let me put this. I like this to do this. John is excellent sports business journal. Nobody knows this stuff better than you. But let's kitchen table it. I'm talking about my kitchen table. Tell me what this is going to mean long term with Sinclair not able to get their networks, the regional sports networks on Dish. Is that a start of something happening? You've been talking about regional sports networks and the problems that leagues and teams are going to have. And I talked to somebody this week. They said 2024 is kind of the year where everything's going to kind of hit that iceberg. So what does this mean for the Titanic you keep talking about?
It's bad news for Sinclair. It's bad news for the RSNs. But what does this mean? It doesn't mean that much, I don't think, but surprisingly so. Dish Network they weren't carrying the RSNs. They've been off Dish Network for the past 2 years. And so they would be adding the RSNs back on. So it's not as though the RSNs lost distribution here. And plus, Dish Network is known throughout the media business as Charlie Ergen runs it. They never set the bellwether for the rest of the for the rest of the industry. The real interesting part is going to come next year, Andrew, and that's when Sinclair's deal with Charter is up. And John Malone and Charter, they're the second biggest cable operator. Charter runs the Spectrum systems. If they decide to play hardball with Sinclair, and the Dish Network did set a roadmap of sorts that you can start to play hardball with them. If Charter does, and they drop the RSNs or they bring the rates to the RSNs back, then that iceberg that you talk about 2024, that could be 2022. It could be coming up real soon.
Let me ask you this though: is that the digital play, right? Sinclair's talked about the digital play. I've talked to people. I think if MLB were to sell their regional rights, so people could sell directly, it seems to me ESPN Plus or ESPN or Amazon would be much better players, have much more reach, are digitally more savvy than Sinclair. Is that accurate in your eyes as well?
I think that's accurate. But on top of that, the relationships that Major League Baseball has with Amazon and with ESPN, and I also reported in SBJ a couple weeks ago with Fanatics has been talking about doing the streams. It's incredible how they've gone from selling some shirts to now they're in gambling, ticket sales, or they're going to be getting into media eventually. But the relationships are there. Baseball, and we're talking about baseball more than basketball and hockey because baseball has so much more content, so many more games out there. Baseball would much rather do a deal with an ESPN or Amazon or Fanatics or anybody but Sinclair.
Last point for me is like, how do you make the money different though? Yankees, obviously with Yes Network, they make a lot more money than the Pirates or other teams in smaller markets. So if you did that, they're going to have to, I guarantee you, the Yankees aren't just going to be like, let's just split up evenly like it's the NFL. So they're going to have to figure out how you do that differently.
Yeah, and then just one final point that I'm going to make is, on the last pod, we talked about the possibility of no baseball in April. And one of the reasons that I'm so pessimistic is because of the RSNs. The baseball owners see that the RSNs, the money that they're getting from the RSNs is going to continue to drop. And when they go to all streaming, it's not going to be they're not going to get close to the revenue that they're getting from the RSN. So if you're sitting there as a baseball team, you see long-term, the local media revenues, they're going down. And that's part of what they're arguing about with the players right now. And that's why I'm so pessimistic. That's a pretty big bridge that they're going to have to cross.
Yeah, maybe gambling makes up for that. All right, let's move to topic 3. Sunday night baseball, Alex Rodriguez, Carl Ravitch. What is going to happen? John, this is.
Oh my God. Are we talking about A-Rod again? Really?
People want to know about A-Rod. All right, here's what I know.
All right, Andrew Marchand, the A-Rod reporter. What's happening right now? By the way, you got scooped. A-Rod just bought Trump's hotel in D.C. You got scooped on that, man. Come on.
You know what? When I covered the Yankees for ESPN back in the day, I used to have on my Twitter, I cover number 13, which you probably know is Alex Rodriguez's number. And when we were, the great Wally Matthews was my tag team partner covering the Yankees. He used to call me up on a Sunday, right? He'd be in like Baltimore or something. I wasn't watching the game. He'd be like, "What do you think I should write?" I'd be like, "I'd write A-Rod." Like, I didn't even watch the game. He's like, "A-Rod didn't play." So I still write A-Rod. All right. So people are interested in A-Rod. And so look, I'm told it's probably 50-50. He's coming back on Sunday Night Baseball. So that's very much in question.
ESPN wants him back, right?
It's like Game of Thrones always at ESPN. I think there's a divide. Some people want him back who are very important. Some people aren't as keen on A-Rod. And so I don't know. It's interesting. I've written about this. Does he want to work with Carl Ravitch, who does have kind of pole position to be the new play-by-play guy with Matt Vasgersian stepping away from that job? Does A-Rod want to work with Ravitch? That's in question. The money is in question. Not that A-Rod needs the money, but people, they know what like Tony Romo makes. They know what others make. And so, that becomes an issue as well. So I think it might be trending A-Rod's not back. I'm not reporting that. So anybody listening, I am not reporting that. So please.
It's not a report, but I do want your prediction on this. I have no prediction. I have no inside knowledge on this.
I don't like making, I gotta be honest, as a reporter, I don't like to dodge, right? Like ratings fine, but I don't like to predict something I'm reporting on. I will say it's trending down. Magic was also trending down, and then ESPN ended up signing him. I was getting all kinds of people telling me, nope, it's not going to happen. Then it did. So these things can change, especially Jimmy Pitaro, the chairman of ESPN, huge Yankee fan, likes A-Rod.
Jimmy from Bristol, right?
Jimmy from Bristol, yeah. So podcast guest, second week, Jimmy Pitaro. We've also had Chicago. We'll give you the whole pod list later. Next week, Roger Bennett.
We started with SVP, yeah.
SVP first week. All right, we'll do them all. Shaq, if you go, week 6? We talked about Shaq.
Roger Bennett. I'm excited for
Ray
Roger
Giannotti on WFAN said that everyone's had Shaq on. I don't know.
Nobody has Shaq on.
Look, he does do a lot. I think he was a good get. Green Mile, the whole thing. We got different stuff out of him.
All right, one more A-Rod question for you, Andrew. Let's just say he doesn't come back. Is Matt Vasgersian kicking himself for leaving?
Yeah, I don't really think so, because there was a feeling that before Matt jumped, he might have been pushed. Norby Williamson has a tight relationship with Carl Ravitch, and he's one of the top decision makers now on baseball's coverage. So there's a feeling that Norby wants Ravitch as the play-by-play guy. That's his guy. Ravitch has been the lead studio person for MLB coverage on ESPN for a long time now. He does play-by-play, and that's who Norby wants. So Matt might have not been back anyway. So he got ahead of the game, and he's got the Angel gig, and he's got MLB Network. So I don't know. So I don't think it's as simple as he could have kept the job if he wanted to.
All right, let's wrap it up. Let's go to topic 4. Yeah.
Another A-Rod employer, Fox. Now, look, we keep talking about streaming, right? And strategy. Let's try. Fox's strategy is different than ESPN with ESPN Plus, CBS with Paramount Plus, NBC with Peacock. Yeah, Fox, they have Tubi. I love saying Tubi, but that they're not really focusing on Tubi at all. They have rights, but they're not putting stuff there yet. Tell me why. What they're trying to do with Fox and their lack of a streaming platform, basically, that they're using.
Fox is looking at all the money ESPN is spending on ESPN Plus, CBS is spending on Paramount Plus, and NBC is spending on Peacock. And they're saying, we don't need to spend all that money to build up a streaming service. Let all those other companies do the streaming services, figure out who's going to succeed, who's going to fail. And Fox has turned everything over to its other businesses that they're really focusing on. They're ahead of the game in sports gambling, I think, in terms of the other networks. And they're just focused on really driving other revenue and partnering with the Champions League. They're going to partner with Fubo TV. We reported that a couple of weeks ago. This hasn't been announced, but it's going to happen. They do have Tubi, so they're able to get some games on Tubi. But Fox wants the cable bundle to continue to exist for as long as it can, because they're getting a lot of money from it. So they don't want to. They don't want to cede streaming, lose money on streaming. They just want to keep collecting cash from the cable bundle.
Yeah, and another thing that I think Fox feels, again, some little birdies, is that when you look at prime time, right, with shows that used to do well, Friends used to have 23 million people watching it. Now the top show does 1 or 2 million people, and then you have sports, which is still doing great. Well, where's that money where advertisers used to put that money into Friends? Where is it going? It's going into sports, and they're able to charge more, and there's more demand, and they think that's going to continue. And that's where kind of their strategy goes. All right, move to topic 5. A theme of the podcast obviously is so much about streaming, not streaming, and cable and linear and everything. ESPN Classic is going to be no longer. Started a long time ago. We watch classic games. They try to do some programming. What's your take on ESPN Classic shutting its doors?
ESPN Classic, it started and I loved it. I think they had the 1984 Doug Flutie game against Miami on every single week. And what happened was when ESPN bought it, it was a Steve Bornstein purchase. And when they bought it from Brian Beadall and Steve Greenberg, all of a sudden the leagues took a look and they were like, you don't have all those rights. And so it eventually became, they did have the rights to show old boxing matches, and they created a couple of cool shows around it. The Stump the Schwab, being one of them. It's notable because this is the first time ESPN has ever taken a 24 channel dark. And so it's notable for that. But by the end, it was in 2 million homes, and it's a bit of nostalgia, but I would suggest most people think that it was already gone.
Yeah, the problem it always had is that it couldn't have regular programming. It was something, back in the day you could flip to. I think Mark Shapiro at one point tried to make regular programming, which was kind of a good thought. It just doesn't necessarily work overall. I think that idea was good in terms of trying to make that work, but it just, when you're just have kind of randomness on, there's not really a reason to turn to it, even if people kind of had some nostalgia for that. And you would think, though, online there might be some sort of service, and maybe it's already out there, I'm not even positive, where you could kind of call up certain games if you wanted to. I actually think people...
It's called YouTube, Andrew.
Yeah, good point. There's some kind of... Is that a new service? I've never heard of it. That's a good... I'm like, maybe there's a service. YouTube. You don't sound old, Andrew. Oh, yes, YouTube.
Yeah,
yes,
that's kids.
Right. There is a service. Speaking of, last point for me on I was actually living in Miami on that Flutie University of Miami game, and we were going to go to Fuddruckers, and people who I don't know if Fuddruckers is everywhere, but it's a great hamburger place. You have humongous hamburgers, and we're about to leave. My parents are like, "Hey, you're going to go?" I go, "Let me watch this last play." And I was living in Miami. I was a huge Hurricane fan, and that was a devastating Flutie bomb. Do you remember who he threw it to?
Gerald Phelan. I was in the basement of my DC home watching it, and it was the same thing. I almost turned it off. I was like, "Oh, let's just see what happened."
Yep, Flutie flakes, the whole thing. All right, last topic before we do our calls of the week. Pac-12, John Kizano. I think I pronounced his name correctly. I've been a longtime reader of his stuff from the Oregonian.
He's
excellent
very good
writer, great writer. Hopefully I said his name correctly, but I've read him forever and noticed his stuff out in Portland for a long time. Very good story on ESPN coverage of the Pac-12 and its really kind of going on the cheap with their production and the view and what you're seeing on your screen. And he did some fine reporting to find out that, yeah, they're just going B level. And now ESPN sounds like they're going to fix that problem, but that's an issue.
Yeah, it's an issue, but it really shows the way that ESPN and frankly Fox as well view the Pac-12. They have good brands there that aren't playing good football and haven't for a long time. And I think that this is illustrative of what's going to happen when the Pac-12 rights come up. It's a great time to be a sports rights holder for big leagues, but I have a feeling that the Pac-12 might get hurt.
This is kind of the topic we were talking about earlier. I mean, Big Ten is the next big rights package.
Pretty, yeah.
It is, and a lot of people think CBS is going to go hard, but I do think you think about Fox. We talked about their relationship with the Big Ten. You would think that would help them. Big Noon's been a big success, so I do think that incumbency should help Fox if they, to retain it. But I do think CBS is going to go hard and going to say, "Hey, look, we got 3:30 coming up. It's going to be wide open once the SEC moves to ESPN."
The most viewed window in college football. You can put your one game a week there. I think that they have a pretty good, especially if they pony up the money. And under Viacom, they've been ponying up the money. I think they can sell it pretty well.
You can make a prediction?
I predict that it'll stick with Fox and ESPN.
All right, there you go. All right, we move to the calls of the week.
The calls of the week. Here we go.
Call of the week.
All right, we move to our calls of the week. John, why don't you lead us off?
I have Roy Philpott, who called that great Kansas-Texas game on ESPNU. Kansas just scored a touchdown in overtime. They're lining up for a 2-point conversion to win the game. Let's hear the call.
Daniels, flushed. Daniels, end zone, caught! Kansas wins it! Jared Casey, the hero, and the Jayhawks find a way.
So, Andrew, that call was good. It wasn't great. It was good. But the reason I'm making it the call of the week is because there's no reason on prime time on a Saturday night I'm going to be on ESPNU. But I saw a lot of social traffic about this game. I saw it was a good game, and I got in for the half of the fourth quarter overtime and was treated to just a fantastic production. And I have some numbers here. The game was the most viewed game of the year on ESPNU. It had nearly 500,000 viewers, which is a big ESPNU number for the whole game. But in the final quarter hour, it had 877,000 viewers, which shows that a lot of people were hearing that traffic, going there. And my point is, you never know when you're going to get a big audience to have a big call.
John, people are listening. They're like, I've been listening to this podcast for 7 weeks. I thought cable was dead. Apparently, it's not. It's alive.
It's not. It's not. I'm a big. Long live the bundle.
Long live the bundle. Nearly 1 million people. That's a lot, and that shows you the power of social as well. All right, my call of the week also goes to ESPN. One of my favorites, John Champion on U.S. Mexico, the second goal to seal it.
So in the first 85 minutes here, McKennie, and again McKennie, 2-0. A potentially defining moment for a growing yet youthful team.
All right, now it's Champion using a little Spanish to emphasize the win. Huge victory for the U.S. national team. They could, of course, then they come back and they tie. Was it Jamaica? But a big win over Mexico. Champion's tremendous. I like Taylor Twellman a lot as well. He's a little more polarizing. Soccer, I mean, I will tell you, if there's one audience that really is passionate about and has opinions about their announcers, it's soccer. But I like that team with Champion and Twellman.
Taylor Twellman, Maryland grad. He's a Terp.
So can we not say anything bad about him as well?
No. He did not do our TVF, and I did not share a class with him, so he does not fit in on that. So I'm happy to bash him when I need to. I thought that was a great call. He rose to the excitement of the moment, and like you said, it would be an all-timer, except for that tie against Jamaica. I mean, come on. I thought there was a momentum building here.
They're well positioned though to make it to the World Cup, which after not making it last time, if they don't make it this time, would be a major disappointment. All right, that's week 7. Next week we'll have Roger Bennett from Men in Blazers talking Premier League reaction. He's scheduled to be on. You can go back and listen to our podcast. Week 1, Scott Van Pelt. Week 2, Jimmy Pitaro. Then we had a couple of weeks where it's just the two of us. Then we had Bob Costas. What was that? Week 5. Shaquille O'Neal, week 6, if you want to hear interviews. But then also we talk shop every week. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can subscribe to John's newsletter and the Sports Business Journal. For me, you can read my newsletter every Monday from Post Sports Plus, our new subscription add-on service. And then everything else is free. But we thank you. If you rate and review the pod, that apparently helps. And so we appreciate
Andrew, you didn't mention WFAN, WJFK in DC. Come on, we're multimedia here, man.
Yeah, I'm doing. Yeah, it's just there's podcasts, there's radio shows. So yeah, you can hear us a lot of places, and we enjoy. Hopefully, you're enjoying this. We're enjoying doing it, and so we'll be back next week, Thanksgiving edition. No weeks off for the pod. No weeks off for the pod. We'll be back, and you can listen to it next week at your family dinner. Thank you, guys.
That's certainly what we're going to be doing. Thanks a lot for listening to the end.